So let's implement these update related hooks. And I won't implement them in all components because that might let our console log explode. So I'll do it in the persons.js component. I'll implement them below the creation related ones, but above render. By the way, if you're wondering why I did implement these methods like this and not as properties with arrow functions, you could absolutely do that. But since these methods are not called through DOM events, and therefore we will never have this keyword issue, we may also use this syntax, which you might know from other programming languages too. Back to the lifecycle hooks though. Let's start with component will receive props. And there we get the upcoming props as an argument. Now in there, I'll add a console log statement where I'll print update persons.js so that we can easily see this. And there I'll say inside component will receive props. And I will also print next props here so that we can see these. Let me save this and let's see when this runs. I'll reload the app. We don't see it here because we defined it in the persons.js file. If I click toggle persons, let's analyze the console log here. We got all the persons related methods, so persons.js in the constructor, will mount, persons.js render, then our single person component, so these are all single person components, and did mount. No update related lifecycle hook. So let me clear the log, but I didn't reload the page. And now let's change something. Let's maybe remove one of these persons manual here. If I click on him, you see render is recalled in app.js because the state changed. And then we see our update will receive props method is called, where we get the updated props, where we have persons, which is only 2 persons now. And then we are inside render of persons and of the 2 person components which remained, because these needed to re-render. You saw that the render method is also part of the update lifecycle. So that's great. Let's add another hook, a very important method actually. Should component update, which is not just a convenience method, but one where we can really save some performance if we cleverly use it. There we get the upcoming props and state. And I will also add a console log here, where I will say update persons.js inside should component update. And I will print next props and next state here too. Now, as I said, this method should return true or false. If it returns true, the updating continues. If it returns false, we stop the whole process. Now let's return false here to see how that would look like. If I save everything now, and I toggle persons, that all works. But now let's remove manual again. I click on him, but you see it doesn't update. I can click on him multiple times. You even see the update method is called should component update, and the array there changes. Persons only holds 1 element here, because I did delete 2 persons. It's not reflected in the DOM though, because we canceled the update process. So we never reached the render methods, which would be important for telling React to check if the real DOM needs to be updated. This shows us the power of should component update. Now you might wonder, why would we ever return false then? Because here, of course, it breaks the app, but you might have cases where you know that no update is required. And of course, typically you don't hardcode true or false here. Instead, you check that based on the upcoming props and or state. So here, for example, we know that we only want to continue if next props persons is not equal to this props persons, which are the old persons. Now with this implemented, let's go back, toggle persons. Now if I click on a person, we successfully go through the whole process because the persons array changed. And by the way, this only is true because we used an immutable approach of updating the persons array, because this doesn't deeply check the persons array. It only sees if it's different objects, but these are different objects because of the way we update persons here in our app.js file. There, when we set persons, we set it to a new array. So it is a totally different object. That's important. Should component update here doesn't deeply check this. It only compares the root objects, the pointers to be precise, but these are different because we recreated a new array. But that out of the way, what would now happen is if we somehow change some other property, which might not be relevant for this component, this won't trigger an update and we can save performance here. So this is should component update. You don't necessarily need to add it to every component because that would mean you should use stateful components all over the place, and it's kind of against what I said earlier about you using functional components as often as possible. But if you have a use case where you know, yeah, this component receives a lot of props, but actually it should re-render only if one of these props changes, then you might turn your component into a stateful one and implement should component update to check whether this single prop which is important to you did change or not, and ignore all the other ones. So with that, we got this extra check and we can continue implementing lifecycle hooks. The next lifecycle hook after should component update is component will update. Now we decided that we're about to update. Here I also received the upcoming state and props. So now let's log this to the console here too. Let's log update persons.js inside component will update and log next props and next state here too. With that, let's save this and let's see it in action one more time. Toggle persons, clear the log, delete the person, and we see app.js render, component will receive props, should component update, will update, and then the render methods of the relevant components. Perfect. Now the next method after component will update was render. We already got that. The next method thereafter is component did update. There we now can cause side effects just as in component did mount, and I will quickly print this too. Here we don't have next props and next state because it's after the update. We just have this props and this states. The new props and the new state are the current props and current state at this point of time. So let's save this one more time. Toggle persons, clear the log, delete the person, and all the way at the bottom you see component did update. So that's the updating lifecycle. If the update is triggered from outside due to changing props, as it is the case for persons, the persons array changed.